we got a lot to talk about, and it's a lot of rumors about Trey Lance, about the Texans potentially not picking a quarterback at number 2, which is gaining a ton of momentum right now. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you.
Sounds like a bot to me. Chris Zorella. Bot.
The thing that's kind of gaining the most, because I didn't think that this was going to happen. It seemed like it was going to be CJ Stroud. Yeah, you tell him, Chris. You freaking tell him. He's like, I just noticed gray haircuts. For a while, right? It was like, okay, it's going to be CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. For a hot second, it might have been Anthony Richardson. Bryce Young canceling the rest of his visits to all the teams. So it looks like the Panthers are going to be taking Bryce Young, number 1 overall. So then that leads to the Houston Texans. What? Mm-hmm. No. The Houston Texans. I think we're going to draft a QB. It's just not going to be in the first round. And so the Texans, as the time has gone on, there's been more and more chatter that they may not be taking CJ Stroud at 2. In fact, they might not even be going QB at 2. It's gaining. So, because it was between Ian Rappaport and Schefter, and I think Shefty was saying that he doesn't think. There was someone else who was also saying that they don't think, it was like a former analyst or something.
Yeah, he might be into Jesus a little hard.
A little hard.
Wrestling's into Jesus hardcore. But yeah, continue.
So setting the scene. So now we're sitting here going, okay, well, what if the Texans decide not to go get a QB? Because we had in the rundown who's going to trade up for the number 3 spot. But now a team might be willing to trade with the Texans, and the Texans could now trade down. Yes.
No,
yes.
Fuck no.
Yes.
No,
yes.
Not watching.
Yes.
Not
yes.
gonna
shoot
happen.
A trailer for a Pokemon restaurant, you douche. How about that? That's what you should do. Anyway, so I'm curious because now there's rumors about Trey Lance, which here we go now. Perfect, Adam. Great segue. That teams are giving a little ring to the San Francisco 49ers saying, hey, you open to Trey Lance because it seems like you're going with Brock Purdy. So yeah. I'm very curious, Brandon Perna, your thoughts on the Texans not taking a QB at 2. And if they don't, do they trade a 2nd-round pick or something for Trey Lance?
I think it's a bunch of BS. I think it's smoke screens. I think the Texans would be next level stupid to not take a quarterback at number 2. I hope they don't, though. Like, it will be so on brand for that organization and just probably another decade of failure for them. Now, if they do trade for Trey Lance, so like that first criticism is if they don't go any QB there.
Okay.
They say, hey, we're trading back. Now,
trade back Will Anderson,
Davis Mills to the 49ers, other than maybe the 49ers request that be part of the trade. But I think, like, even if you acquire Trey Lance and you're the Texans, you kind of want Davis Mills.
Yeah.
He seems like a really solid guy to have as a backup.
Agreed.
He's as a quarterback and a mentor, he'll never be looking over, the starter's shoulder, because he'll be looking over the back of their head by 10 feet. So you don't have to worry about that. I would keep Davis Mills. If they do make a trade for Trey Lance, I think maybe, DeMeco Ryans likes Trey Lance, likes what he saw from him while he was over in 49erville, in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. So maybe there's like that connection there. Maybe DeMeco Ryans like, look, we can win with this guy.
That's a really good point.
I could see that working out. It depends on how much capital they get from moving that 2 spot. I think, like, if they're going to trade Trey Lance, you're talking about the value too. They're not giving up they're not sending San Francisco their 2nd pick for Trey Lance.
Yeah. Then that's the point, right? Like, because that gets into a whole different conversation. What is even the trade compensation for Trey Lance? Because the 49ers, they traded a buttload to move up and grab him, but he barely has played, and he's also injured. Yeah. And you just don't know. So I mean, at most a second round pick, at most.
Yeah, it'd probably be like a third rounder. Like if the Packers aren't willing to, or if the Jets aren't willing to give up a first for Aaron Rodgers, that ain't happening. But see, like that allows
He's on
the
his rookie
Texans
deal,
to
though.
just. I mean, okay, I went from hating it to like if they believe in Trey Lance,
I've kind of talked myself into it.
there's got to be another team who wants to get to 2 for a quarterback that
Yeah.
the Texans can deal with, and then they can have a shit ton of picks over the next 2 seasons and really build through the draft.
So with that, right? Because there's so many little avenues to explore here. Because if let's just say the Texans go, you know what, Bryce Young was our guy, which by the way makes that last game of the season look even worse. In which Lovie Smith, oh man, the Bears, yeah, you get to build that statue. But the thing is, you want to trade out of that 2 spot because maybe you're just like, you know what, we could get Will Anderson because maybe we want to. But the problem is, if everyone knows the Texans aren't taking a QB, people are not going to necessarily trade up with them. Maybe they'll go to the 3 spot for Arizona because Arizona's not going to take a QB. But it could be the run of QBs doesn't start until the Colts. Because I'm sorry, if CJ Stroud falls to 4 with the Colts, they are like, this is the greatest day of my life. Because they went from a team that like had the 0 QB prospects. We didn't know what they were going to do. And there's a real possibility that, hey, maybe there's even like that interdivisional trade. You could see it if the Colts offer enough. The Texans drop down 2 spots. Maybe they pick up like another second or something like that.
Yeah, the Colts could move there. The Raiders could move there. But this is why it's nice to have premier quarterbacks sought after in the draft compared to last year. Everybody's like, there might not be a quarterback taken in the first round. And it was really boring because of that. We didn't get all the crazy smoke screens. And right now I think we're seeing a lot of smoke screens because first, when the Panthers jumped right to number 1, it was, oh, their guy is CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
We've heard the clips. We've seen the googly eyes from Josh McCown to CJ Stroud. And then just this week, it changes to, no, their guy's Bryce Young. And that went back to, I thought everybody had Bryce Young as the consensus, like number 1 QB prospect in this draft. So it just makes it really interesting. The other thing with Trey Lance that makes me think the 49ers won't deal him is there's like a little piece of news last week or earlier this week that Brock Purdy doesn't know when he'll be ready to go.
That's what Justin was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. He said essentially like he could miss all of the season is what some were alluding to. He doesn't know when his elbow will be, 100%, but they have Sam Darnold there.
They can win with any QB. It really doesn't matter. Like they have so many skill players. It's just like, yeah, Sam Darnold, go win like the first 4 games. It's fine.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like, if the 49ers move on from Trey Lance, that is such a whiff in the draft, such a miss, but they've managed to stay competitive that whole time that they won't receive the flack if it were, a Paxton Lynch. And the Broncos just moved up at the end of the first round. So
because it's tough because they went and they traded a boatload to get their franchise QB or who they thought was with Trey Lance. It seems, right, that they got their franchise QB with the last pick of the draft. So I feel like there's going to be a little bit of it all comes out in the laundry kind of thing. Like there's going to be that kind of talk from like the 49ers organization, like fans, and be like, oh, well, we got our franchise guy. We just didn't get who we thought we would.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But
no, it's totally fine.
But it 100% like is a whiff. I mean, so the people who bet like the Dolphins, good God, they benefited so much from this. It's just really interesting. And then with Trey Lance, it's starting to make more and more sense to me. Because you do have the D'Amico Ryans, like you have that hookup. And 2, if it's just a second rounder, someone mentioned that in the super chat before. If you say, you know what? Yeah, we're going to trade for Trey Lance. Great. And if he sucks, then we just gave up a second rounder or third rounder, whatever it winds up being. We just gave up that. We still have all our first round picks from this year. And if we suck, then we go get Caleb Williams next year. And then we're just in it for there. It might not be the worst idea.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay.
It's going to make this draft sexy time.
But I mean, so do you think if the Texans don't draft a QB, like they're crazy at number 2, or have you talked yourself into Trey Lance?
No, I would still I would take it. I would take a QB. Like, I mean, it's so hard because we just haven't seen Trey Lance play. We haven't seen him play.